Michael Maguire has gone from the hero to all of New South Wales to potentially the saviour of the Brisbane Broncos. It was announced just the other day, less than a week after the sacking of Kevin Walters, that Michael Maguire will be the Brisbane Broncos head coach for the next 3 seasons, which I guess those seasons means absolutely nothing in the modern game. But the simple fact, the simple truth, and the bare bones of it is that he is now the head coach of the biggest franchise in Australian sport. A lot of people have had their say, a lot of people have their doubts, and a lot of Broncos fans are very optimistic. But at the same time, the Brisbane Broncos old boys, they haven't had an issue with rushing to give their thoughts on why Michael Maguire, a dirty New South Welshman, may not be fit for the role. But we all know, out of all the rugby league opinions from all the great analysts, commentators and former players, that the best opinion online is this absolute dead shit redhead. So let's finally talk about Madge Maguire, because I've had a few days to sit on this since the rumours came out on Monday. But before we break down why I think this can and cannot work for the Brisbane Broncos, the appointment of Madge Maguire, there has been a lot of rhetoric thrown around by the New South Wales fans, and a lot of opinions have been expressed that are both anti-Madge and pro-Madge. And I've got to sit here and I'm just going to give my honest opinion. I think deep down, all of the New South Wales fans know that this was the price for that Origin Series win this year. And we really have no leg to stand on, because we took Madge right after he did what he did with New Zealand. The greatest moment, potentially, you could argue, in New Zealand's rugby league history. Straight after that, we took Madge Maguire from that because it was a better opportunity. And this has all been part of Michael Maguire's quest to get back into a full-time NRL coaching role. Long before he became this rep football specialist he sort of turned into in just the space of the last 12 months, Michael Maguire had 2 stints at 2 of the biggest clubs in Sydney, and with one of them, he broke nearly a 60-year premiership drought. So it would have been great to see Madge finish out his contract, even if it was just the extra year. And the main reason for that is because he did such a good job, and it felt like New South Wales was starting to build something very special. It was our greatest Origin win, certainly in my lifetime, it felt, and he was going to get the likes of Tommy Turbo, Nathan Cleary, and Latrell Mitchell back for a full State of Origin series in 2025. So as a Blue, I'm absolutely devastated that we didn't get to see what Madge can do in the Origin arena, because it felt like we had finally begun to do something special. I know Freddie felt the same way, but this was an experienced coach, and unlike Freddie, Madge was heavily the underdog. Game 1, everything went against us. The send-off in 7 minutes, which ended up being the game at home, and then we went to Suncorp and did what hadn't been done in about 20 years. And I do think a lot of the criticism from Madge from New South Welshman is because we know deep down Madge could have been something so special that the state has needed since about, let's be honest, the early 2000s with Gus. But I'm happy for Madge, and for me at least, I just felt like that was a price to pay. That was always in the background. We all knew Michael Maguire wanted to be a full-time head coach, and if he had one State of Origin, there was going to be every club that sacked their coach this year was going to be after him. And looking back, I think if the Parramatta Eels job had come out at the end of the Origin series, there's a good chance Michael Maguire would be the Parramatta Eels head coach right now rather than the Jason Riles. So I think this is the price to pay for that successful season. It sucks it's going to be one and done, but heck, what a one and done. And I'd certainly rather this than having lost a 3rd straight Origin series this year. But I know most of you didn't come here to listen to me cry that my New South Wales Pookie Bear has left me, because now he has gone from the hero to us in blue to the king of the filthy boys from North. And no, Billy's still the Queensland coach, but Michael Maguire has done something so sin-worthy to both of our states, because he is now the head coach of the Brisbane Broncos. And just like a lot of New South Wales fans have expressed their opinions about getting their hearts broken by Madge, a lot of the Queensland and Brisbane Broncos old boys, which we spent a lot of 2020 during the Let's Celebrate the End of Anthony Seabolt's coaching career party, we heard a lot about the Brisbane Broncos old boys. And isn't it a coincidence that as soon as one of the great Broncos of all time, their best mate Kevin Walters, gets the sack, they've had no question bringing back the criticism straight away. And it didn't take long for Madge to be appointed. Pretty much we were all expecting him to be announced as the Brisbane Broncos head coach, because less than 24 hours after the news broke about Kevy being moved on, Madge was linked to the job. Now, I have seen a lot on both sides. I have seen a lot of pro Madge Maguire rhetoric coming out of Brisbane Broncos fans, and there is a lot of hope there, and there is a lot of optimism, but it hasn't taken long for a lot of Broncos players, especially, mainly, to be honest. I know there's been some fans, but it's mainly been the players who have been quick to shut down the idea of a New South Welshman being the Brisbane Broncos head coach. To be honest, I don't think that's much of a conversation. I know maybe 2 decades ago it would have been, but that was the same generation where Wayne Bennett was never leaving the Brisbane Broncos, and now Wayne Bennett has been at more clubs than the great and powerful Manly legend Blake Green. So that doesn't worry me too much. What does worry me for Madge is that we haven't even started this season yet, the 2025 season, and there's already a lot of negativity coming out of it. And for Madge Maguire, he is walking into the toughest job, Nelly, in Australian sport, the biggest franchise in rugby league, and he doesn't have the luxury of Kevy, who's coming in off a wooden spoon. The Brisbane Broncos are obviously judged on the fact they got rid of Kevy just 12 months after he nearly won a grand final if it wasn't for the great chin. They are expecting to contend, and they are expecting to win a premiership within the next few years before Adam Reynolds moves on. So Madge Maguire, for all the talk around New South Wales, how critical they are, no one turns more quickly against their team than Brisbane Broncos fans. As much as Queenslanders love to say we hate our team in New South Wales and we are so quick to criticise, the Brisbane Broncos are far worse, and you only saw it with a club legend like Kevy, and that is a club legend, a top 3 Brisbane Broncos player of all time, probably second behind Darren Lockyer, who's going to be a rugby league immortal. Madge needs to learn and needs to know he is walking into an absolute fire pit, because he's going into a team that is going to have all the pressure on them. They're going to get so many Channel 9 Friday night games, as they often do, which means they get the hardest draw in the competition. And if he doesn't live up to expectations, if he doesn't make the top 4, then those Brisbane Broncos old boys are going to come out and they are going to torch him quickly, and it's going to be no different than with the fans. So as a New South Welshman, there was a lot for me to hope that Madge wouldn't take the job, but you cannot blame him. This is an opportunity that is once in a lifetime. He can be the guy that wins the Brisbane Broncos' first premiership in about 20 years. Look how much he is loved at South Sydney for it. I know the end there wasn't great, but he's going to live in South Sydney folklore, and as big as South Sydney are, but he did that with South Sydney, and for as big as the clubs are here, they are nothing compared to that juggernaut up north. He will be a legend forever if he can bring back a premiership to Brisbane, and I think there's a good chance that he can do that. I think Madge Maguire would have learned a lot from how it ended at South and how it ended at the West Tigers, and looking back, I know they probably would have won the spoon if they had kept Madge, and maybe he had lost the dressing room, but he can't tell me the West Tigers are better off now without Madge. He was the one who recruited Isaiah Papali'i. He was the one who recruited Api Coruscant, who at the time was without a doubt the best dummy half in rugby league. That wasn't Tim Sheens, that wasn't Benji, that was Michael Maguire. And last time he took over a big club, he turned them into a premiership powerhouse. They made the prelim however many times in a row, and yes, it ended ugly, but look what he did at the beginning. He has such a good roster there, and when you look at to what he did for New South Wales this year and what he did for New Zealand last year, I think if he can bring that, whatever the secret sauce was there, and bring that to a team that has a Reece Walsh going into his prime, an Ezra Mam going into his prime, a Payne Haas, a Paddy Carrigan, who they may be even entering their primes. I mean, look what he did for Payne Haas in just this Origin series, and what was great about this Origin series for both Payne Haas but all the Queenslanders in that squad is that Madge is going to bring a presence. He's going to bring the presence of a guy who smashed most of these guys playing for Australia in that test match at the end of last year, but also he's now an Origin winning head coach. He's going to be old school, and for a lot of the criticisms around the Brisbane Broncos become these absolute superstars, if anyone can bring them down to earth, make him get to that old school toughness, it's going to be Michael Maguire. However, there is the flip side to that, and we know how it ended with him being so ruthless and so tough that both the Tigers and the Bunnies players just got sick of it, and this is obviously a new age. This is Reece Welch, Ezra Mam. These guys are bigger superstars than Madge Maguire will ever be, and the Brisbane Broncos will have to work a balance. Because I know, like any workplace, like any coach, they're going to butt heads. And this is a young team. This is a young team full of superstars who really encapsulate the next era of athletes that we're going to see in rugby league, who have grown up watching Ronaldo, Messi, LeBron James. I mean, Reece Welch has more followers than most NRL clubs, including the Brisbane Broncos. And the wider public are going to turn a lot quicker on Madge than they are Reece Welch. And the Brisbane Broncos players, I know Selwyn Cobo, I know Tyson Gamble isn't there anymore, but looking back, would they have ever said that about a Craig Bellamy, a Wayne Bennett? I mean, looking back, that may have been the nail in the coffin, and that was always the rhetoric that was coming around the Brisbane Broncos, that Kevy wasn't exactly the best coach. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the players respond to Madge, because if they thought Kevy Walters was brutal and honest and old school, and look, maybe he was, I'm not too sure, but I know Michael Maguire is not going to let Reece Welch make 5 errors a game and have the attack relying straight through him. I do think though that Madge can really bring out the best in these Brisbane Broncos players for whether it's 1-2 years, whether it goes beyond that, I'm not too sure. But Madge's sole responsibility within the next couple of years is going to be win a premiership, because when they get to the point that Adam Reynolds moves on, or simply his body just can't stand up to it anymore, I think the premiership window is going to be a little rebuild, whether it's bringing that young halfback Kobe Black through, or maybe Madge, knowing what he knows, can go out there and maybe get a Mitchell Moses. I do think overall, I think it's going to be great for the short term. The long term is what I'm worried about. But at the end of the day, I think the Brisbane Broncos know they need to win now while their players aren't demanding the millions and millions of dollars they're going to in the next couple of years. I mean, even Staggs and Cobbo, they're both not going to be there in 2026, maybe just one. And even then, they might struggle to keep both of them. I can understand why Madge took the job. As New South Wales fans, I have nothing against him for doing so, but he is walking into the biggest pressure job I can remember there being in rugby league history. I think he's going to succeed for a little bit. I think it's just whether or not the Brisbane Broncos can capture that magic that we saw last year under Madge in those first 2 years. And then I think the real struggle to keep the players on Madge's side is going to go past that. But I'd love to be proven wrong. I have so much love and respect for Madge for what he did with the New South Wales Blues and what he did with New Zealand last year, which you could argue strongly was a lot more impressive despite all the talk about how big Origin is. But I guess we will wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. Before then, you can let me know what you think in that comment section down below. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I'll see you in the next one.